now.
Okay, we're live. Okay, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, even. I've just made that mistake already. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is for our position of Principal Analyst. We've got two available at grade 7. So just to start with some introductions, my name's Jenny. I work as part of the OEP recruitment team. We've set this up as a Teams event, so it's anonymous. We are recording the session, so anybody who can't attend, it will be made available on the OEP website. Because it's anonymous, we have a Q&A feature. Please answer any questions at any point, ask any questions at any point in the Q&A, and we'll stop at various points to go through any questions that are asked. Before we carry on, I'm just going to get the rest of the panel to introduce themselves, please. Shall we start with Natalie?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Natalie Prosser. I'm the Chief Executive here at the OEP.
Robbie?
Hi, everybody. I'm Robbie MacDonald, and I'm the Chief Scientist and Chief Insights Officer at the OEP, and I'm a Professor of Environmental Science.
And Tim?
Hi, and I'm Tim Adey. I'm Head of Science and Evidence here at the OEP.
And John?
Hello, my name's John Pannery, HR Manager here at the OEP, and I'm running the slides in the background today.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you very much, everyone. So first of all, we're going to have a little bit looking at the introduction to the OEP. Who are we? Then we're going to have a look at what we're looking for, the role and the functions of the OEP, the role and functions of the Insights Directorate, and then we're going to move on to discussing the role itself. And then after this, I will be giving some hints and tips with regards to the application, some reasonable adjustment advice, and then, of course, any Q&A at the end. One final point to make is this webinar is not a substitute for the full job description, which should be read thoroughly before making any application. OK, without further ado, I'll hand over to Natalie, please.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And I've come along really, as I do with all of the webinars for our prospective staff, to talk a little bit about us at the OEP, and we'll get into a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to kind of set the scene for you all. So the OEP is still a relatively new organisation, set up in 2021, and we have a really interesting and rather unique role within the landscape of public bodies in environmental protection. And that's because we fulfil something called an environmental governance system, which is basically our job to enable and hold the rest of the system to account for delivering on environmental protection and improvement. And what that means is that because our remit is incredibly broad, it covers a vast array of different environmental issues, and our work it shifts and changes over time in terms of the focus that we might have from one year to the next. What that means is that the OEP is a relatively small organisation. It's a very dynamic and diverse organisation to work within, and we're looking for people who really enjoy being able to lean into a whole range of different areas of work. And because our work covers a number of suppose technical elements, so for example we review government's progress against its targets and goals every year with an independent report. We investigate issues of non-compliance with the law, we provide advice on new law, and we do assessments about how effectively law is being used in practice. It's a very, very broad range of things that we do, and that means that in all of our projects and programmes of activity we work across many disciplines, science, investigation, law and others, and also we want people who enjoy that, who enjoy working with a range of different professions and professionals, who want to bring your own skills and experience to bear on these really quite novel and interesting projects. And in order to do that, in order for that to work well, we work incredibly hard at the OEP at making it a really fantastic place to work. We know that you can't give of your best, particularly when we will ask a lot of you, because we're grappling with substantial and serious issues in the environment. You can't give it your best unless you feel supported, heard, and an environment that values and promotes your skills and experience. And that is exactly what we've aimed to do at the OEP. And I think we've been pretty successful at doing that. Jenny, could we move on to the next slide? Now, in order to do our job well, we do really need a real diversity and range of skills and experience. And that is why we look for as broad a range of different people as we possibly can. Now, we know at the OEP that we can't have all of the skills and experience on staff that we really need across our remit. But we try the best we can to try and cover as many of those bases as is possible. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who enjoy a challenge, who like working with a full range of people, who are comfortable moving from issue to issue, and able to bring that particular expertise to the table. Our colleagues know, and they've heard me say many times, the person who knows the most about any particular topic might be the most junior person in the room. And we try and flatten our hierarchy so that all of our staff can use that experience and skills that they bring to the absolute maximum. So that's a bit of a flavour, I suppose, of what we do at the OEP at the highest level, and also our personality and culture. It is dynamic, it is exciting, it is varied, there is real variety, and every single person who works at the OEP has the opportunity to achieve a personal impact against our mission of protecting and improving the environment. So as it says there in the words of our chair, if that sounds like you, if you think you fit that bill, we really, really want to hear from you. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand you over to the team who are going to tell you more about the OEP's role and more about these particular jobs. But I'm so pleased that you're here to hear about us, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I'll hand back to you now, Jenny.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Natalie. We're going to move on now to the role and functions of the OEP and the Insights Directorate, which Robbie's going to take us through. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Natalie. If you move on to the next slide. So a little bit more in the way of background about what the Office for Environmental Protection is and what it does. As Natalie's mentioned, it's a surprisingly broad remit. It is effectively everything to do with protection of the natural environment. So that ranges in subject matter from things to do with air pollution, water quality, biodiversity, waste management, circular economy, and pretty much everything that you can think of that relates to protection of the environment, or indeed protection of human health as it relates to the environment. And so, you know, that great breadth is something that we're really going to value in this role, is your ability to turn your hand to a range of technical subjects. So just a bit of background as to how we came to be and what we actually do. So it is the OEP is a small body. There's only about 70 of us working for the OEP. And although we are sponsored by DEFRA, so in the grand scheme of things, the way the government's organised, all little organisations have an owner or a sponsored department, we are wholly independent. And that's important because actually a big part of the job that we do is holding government departments to account. So we need to be a wholly independent voice with no ministerial control. So we're independent and we are legally separate from government and its departments. The basis for our establishment comes from the Environment Act. So that was towards the end of 2021. And that was set up at least partly because in response to Brexit and the loss of the oversight role that the European Commission played in how the environment was managed in the UK. But that said, the OEP is a very different sort of organisation from the Commission, and it does a very different sort of job. But it is in that oversight function to make sure that government actually lives up to the promises that it has made, that it follows through on the commitments both nationally, domestically and internationally to look after our environment. So that's what the Environment Act set up. It's actually part of four kind of new cornerstones for post-Brexit environmental governance in England. And the four corners were that there should be long-term statutory targets. So there are legal obligations to improve the environment, for example, halting the decline of biodiversity. There is an environmental principles policy statement, which is that all government departments, all public bodies need to pay due regard to principles of environmental protection, for example, the precautionary principle in making their decisions. There is an environmental improvement plan that has a generational time commitment, so it's a 25-year plan. The whole point being that environment needs our attention over that generational timescale, and should be above and beyond all of the kind of political changing winds that there are on electoral cycles. So this 25-year plan to guide improvement of the environment over the next generation. That's the EIP, the Environmental Improvement Plan. And then there's us. We're the fourth cornerstone. We're the thing that tries to make sure that all of that new system actually works. We're the sort of watchdog, if you like. That's often the way in which we're reported as the green watchdog, to keep an eye on government and make sure that it does what it is said it's going to do and what it's legally obliged to do. So that all stems from the Environment Act. Part of that new system of governance, which is very exciting, right? Because it actually means that we're doing this stuff for the first time. Almost everything that we do, whether we have an investigation of some potential breaches of environmental law, whether we're making an assessment of progress on biodiversity conservation or on progress with the Environmental Improvement Plan, it's all being done for the first time. So it's a really exciting point to join an organisation like this, because we're doing it all new and finding out new ways of working, seeing how we can create the biggest impact and how best to fulfill that function of environmental protection. So when it all boils down to it, what we're basically here for is to make sure that the environment is protected and improved. We hold a mirror up to government, making sure that it fulfills its own obligations. And that's really what the OEP is all about. And then we'll go to the next slide, tell you a little bit more about the Insights Directorate, which is where these jobs are. So I said that I'm a Chief Insights Officer. It's a kind of a curious job title. I quite like the Chief Scientist one because it's a bit more straightforward. But the Insights Directorate is like the Evidence and Analysis Directorate for the organisation. We try to provide an analytical function that brings in evidence across the range of the natural environment commitments that we have, digesting that information, processing, writing information in a coherent and cogent way so that the rest of the organisation can use that and access that. So we have an organisation that is very broad with a wide range of skills from lawyers, people who've worked in commercial law backgrounds, in public sector regulation, perhaps not even in the environmental sector. So people will come to us from other regulators. And so it's our job to process those great swathes of information to make sure that the organisation is fully up to speed with what it's doing and the technical detail thereof. We also produce our own analytical assessments. So one of our key roles is holding government to account for progress on the Environmental Improvement Plan, this 25-year generational scale commitment. And the Insights Directorate leads on that role, both in England and in Northern Ireland. So we're established in Northern Ireland as well. So one of the jobs here is going to be making a major contribution to that work in Northern Ireland, and Tim, my colleague, will tell you about more of that in a moment. So it's a combination of roles where we're supporting all of the technical work across the organisation and then leading on a number of evidence and analytical functions for the organisation in our own right. I mean, I've mentioned the excitement and the opportunity into this role, and it's perhaps worth saying a little bit about what I'm doing in this. And I started out coming into the OEP as an interim director. So we had a short space of time where one director had left and then gap needed filling in order that we could produce our Environmental Improvement Plan assessment report on time. So I joined the OEP as a little bit of a break, actually, from academic life. So for 6 months, and that was 18 months ago, no, nearly 2 years ago. So I've enjoyed it so much that I decided to stick with it. And so I'm now doing that job on a long-term basis too, because my feeling was that as an environmental scientist, I could really contribute to environmental protection in this very immediate way with the OEP, because you're right at the sharp end in a small organisation, and you're not part of a big kind of web of interactions. We're very much at the forefront, prompting government to do what it has to do, and so you can have quite a lot of impact as an environmental scientist in this setting compared to many others, particularly in the public sector or even in the environmental NGOs. So it is an exciting place to be. I've certainly enjoyed it, and I've put my money where my mouth is, as it were, and stuck with it long term after that first period of time. And I hope that that opportunity is also appealing to you. And just to give you a little bit more detail of the nature of these two specific jobs, I'll hand over to Tim, and he can tell you a bit more about the two roles that we're advertising for now.
Thanks, Robbie. Just wait for the slides. So as Robbie says, we've currently got kind of two roles with Insights, the kind of analytical heart of the organisation, and I think it's worth saying that we are a relatively young and a relatively small compared to our remit organisation. We're just over 70 people, so we really do. It's a great opportunity really to make a real contribution and to work across a whole range of things. But the two roles we've got do have kind of distinct focuses. So the first one is more focused on that element and that kind of real key component of Insights that we have, which is kind of holding government to account for its own commitments. So every year we publish a kind of an analysis of how government is doing, its progress against its environmental improvement plan. And that's the case for England, and in Northern Ireland we're still waiting for the environmental improvement plan, but this role will really it will play a kind of key aspect of supporting our work to kind of assess the Northern Ireland Executive's progress, and to kind of make recommendations, and that's kind of one of our key functions really, is recommending where there is a need for improvement and what needs to happen in that area. So there'll be a real focus on that. But as I said, we really do work across the whole remit of the organisation. So we'll also look, and as part of that role, to kind of evaluate the UK government's approach, as well as to whether it's hitting its significant improvement test, and to scrutinise particular areas of focus. So as I said, we're an organisation that's relative for our remit to relatively small to our remit, so we really need to choose where we focus our attention. So we very much take an issues-based approach. We look at where can we have the most effect, where can we really have that strategic delivery, and where can we make the biggest difference. And what we will look to do within Insights is then really focus in on that and help support people. So these roles will definitely get involved and working in some of those priority areas. The other role is we'll have more of a focus on our kind of evidence program. So as I said, we as an organisation have an incredibly broad remit. It is the environment, as Robbie and Natalie said, which is very, very broad, covers a whole range of government departments and a whole range of subject areas. So we have a real need to make sure that we have access to the best and kind of highest quality research and evidence to kind of support and underpin our work. And the second of these roles will therefore work with Robbie and myself to really develop and deliver the kind of evidence program to support that work. As a kind of relatively new organisation, that provides a great opportunity to actually come in and help shape that. So you won't be coming in and just picking up a developed practice. There's a real opportunity to shape the development of our approach to gathering evidence, to help us to develop our relationship with suppliers and really build that up. So it's a great opportunity to kind of work from the ground up, really, to make sure that we're able to get the right evidence at the right time, really, from the right suppliers. And I think to kind of finish on the responsibilities, the other thing that we really do look for is for people to be a subject matter expert in an area of the natural environment. And that is one of the real merits of an organisation like this, is you do get to kind of own and be responsible for one of those subject matters and be really the lead on that within the organisation. So that's the other thing that across all roles and Insights that we really look for. So I'll move on now to kind of what we're looking for in terms of skills and experience. So I mean, the first thing is to say that we're really looking for kind of environmental scientists, kind of natural or social scientists. So you really should have a degree or equivalent skills that demonstrate your kind of skills in that area. As I said, within an organisation of this size, we're looking for people not just to have that strong technical research and analytical skills, but really the ability to kind of plan, manage, lead kind of your work areas and your subject matters. For the evidence role, we are looking for somebody with a background in kind of commissioning and designing kind of large research programs, and associated with that, the experience of really establishing and maintaining relationships with a wide range of suppliers. As an organisation, as Robbie said, and Natalie, that is about really influencing and kind of seeking to steer government and reporting against their progress. We're looking for candidates who are able to really clearly articulate in a clear and authoritative way the kind of complex analysis that we do in a way that can be really turned into kind of policy relevant evidence. So experience of that is kind of a key thing to really be able to demonstrate. And I think probably the final area to talk on is very much that kind of program management aspect. So being able to work across a range of programs within the OEP, you won't be working on just one thing at a time. Generally, you will be able to input across a whole range of projects. And whilst that's really one of the great assets of being able to work here, we are needing candidates who are able to demonstrate that you're able to kind of manage your time and your expertise across those areas.
Thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, thank you very much, Tim. So I'm going to take the opportunity now to say, if anyone's got any questions, please do put them in the Q&A section now. We have Tim and we have Robbie who are available to answer any questions that you have about the role or the OEP. So do take the opportunity to do so if you have got any. So we're going to have a little look now about how to apply. So for this role, you will be applying through civil service jobs, and we're asking for a CV which will detail your work and work history and qualifications, and a 500 word statement of suitability on how you meet the essential criteria outlined in the person specification listed in the advert. And we're also looking for one behaviour statement on the lead behaviour, seeing the big picture. So once your application is submitted, it will be sifted and scored, and if you pass the SIF mark, you will be progressed to interview. Presentation or additional exercise may be required at interview, but if it is, plenty of time will be given for you to prepare for this. Unfortunately, we're unable to provide feedback at SIF stage, and interviews for this role will be held either in person at the Worcester office or in person in our touchdown office in Belfast. Next slide, please, John. Okay, so as I just said, these roles have been advertised for Worcester and Northern Ireland. We'll be interviewing in both locations. So if you are based in Northern Ireland, you'll be based. This wording, by the way, is actually in the advert, so I'm not going to read it word for word. But if you're based in Northern Ireland, you'll be given a home-based contract. But we do have a touchdown space in our Northern Ireland. It's in Belfast, isn't it? So we do have a touchdown office in Belfast, which is quite well attended by our Northern Ireland staff. And if you're based in GB, you'll be given a Worcester-based contract. We operate a blended working model, which supports a combination of office and home working. We are very flexible. We do work to, cater and support both business needs and individual needs. Current expectations are 40% office attendance if you're based in GB. This takes into account, as I said, business and individual needs, but also it takes into account OEP work at other official locations as well. So if you're out and about, that counts as office attendance. Please do read the wording. It is in the advert and it is very clear. This is a grade 7 role. Starting salary is 51,626. On top of this, you have a very generous civil service defined benefit pension, which offers around 27.9% employer contribution rate. This is very depending on grade, and 25 days annual leave rising to 30 days after 5 years. Please do take a look at the full job advert, where the full list of benefits is provided. We can't go through them now because there's just too many of them, but it's a very generous package, and lots of benefits for working for the OEP. I see we've actually got some questions come in. So before I move on to my next slide, reasonable adjustments, should we do some questions? So first one, if I read the question out, then Robbie or Tim, if either of you want to jump in, if you want to take it. First question, do you have an in-house analytical facilities, or do you work with suitable external laboratories?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yes, that's a good question. We don't have in-house labs, and in fact that goes to what this analytical role is actually. So there's not an awful lot of primary data gathering from the field, for example. What we are unlikely, in fact we haven't done so far, and I can't envisage a situation where we would be going out taking field measurements, for example, or making technical assessments directly of stuff that's happening in the environment. And there's multiple good reasons for that. The first is that actually that's a function for the most part that, for example, the Environment Agency or Natural England would have. So at a large scale, they would be gathering data about water quality, about biodiversity on nature reserves or whatever, and then they publish those data. Our role is going to be in the secondary analysis of those. So we can dig deep into them, but we do not now, and we will not have, unless something big changes politically, we will not have the capacity to gather primary data ourselves. So short answer to that question is no, we don't have in-house analytical facilities. That's not really how we work. But the second part of the question about whether we work with external labs, absolutely. So big part of one of these roles will be organising an evidence programme that gathers information from other analytical groups. Now, again, some of that analysis is going to be secondary and tertiary, so we might be doing some modelling studies, we might be doing predictive analysis, we might be doing synthesising and reporting on primary environmental data, but those facilities are going to be somewhere else. So that second role, one of these roles, is about managing that intake of evidence from other labs. So we are a customer for evidence, and we're a consumer and of evidence, and we analyze it and then propagate our conclusions. Hopefully that's a good enough answer to that question. I'll take the next one, Jenny, as well, which is, so it's actually about, so this is when referring to the natural sciences, do we include geosciences? Yeah, absolutely. So natural science, my main point here is that environmental science is a broad church. If you've coming at this from environmental economics or even politics, or if you're coming at it from biological or earth sciences or whatever, it doesn't really matter. What we're looking for is something to offer some subject matter expertise and a strength of experience, depth of experience in a relevant discipline. So that could be any number of different environmental sciences, natural or social.
Fabulous, thank you, Robbie. And we've got another question. Coming from a civil service with clear progression opportunities, what opportunities for progression would there be at the OEP? Who would like to take that one?
I'm live, so I'll stick with it. So we are a small organisation, and that means that the opportunity to sort of bunny hop up the ladder is not as big as it would be in the civil service as a whole. We don't have an in-house promotion scheme that's common across the civil service, but we are already seeing, even within the organisation, that people are applying for jobs at the next level and are able to move successfully within those. So this is a senior role, so it's grade 7. There's one grade above that, that's grade 6, before you get to the senior civil service. So there are a small number of grade 6 roles in the organisation, but actually in relative terms, there are more of them in the OEP than there would be for a central government department. So the progression in terms of grade will be by applying for other jobs at the more senior grade. There are wider opportunities, though, in relation to progression in terms of how you develop skills, and that goes to the breadth and the scale of the organisation, because your ability to take on responsibility and make progress and show success and show contribution at this grade is very clear. You know, so we have people who are at this grade leading major projects, which will have national profile, and it'll be down to you to make it work, and that's pretty exceptional. So your ability to do good work, have impact, and provide narrative about your personal role in that is very, very clear in this role at the OEP.
Thanks, Robbie. And I might just add as well that although we're an NDPB and we're public servants, we service job that's advertised, so we retain that ability as well. So it's just worth pointing that out, just in case you didn't realise. Okay, next question is, can you expand a little bit more on what you were looking for with the seeing the big picture statement, please? Yes, I can. It's actually on the next slide that we're going to have a look at some application hints and tips. So I'll address that one in a minute, if that's okay. Can you clarify what the essential criteria outlined in the person specification are, as the words essential criteria do not occur in the job ad? I'll have to double check that. I thought they did. It is the essential criteria. It's the essential skills and experience under the person specification that you're looking at. So it's this list here. Sorry, John, if you wouldn't mind jumping back to slide 10. It's the list that comes under person specification, which is the essential criteria for the role. We've just put the slide back up so that you can see it, but it's a slide that says a degree and or postgraduate qualification in environmental science, ability to combine leadership, planning, etc. So it's the list of what we're looking for. So when you're writing your statement, that's what we're looking for. Again, that's going to come up again in one of the other slides, so I will come back to that in a second. Right, I'm going to carry on because I'm going to go for a few more slides and then we'll come back to some more questions in a minute, if that's okay, because we might find that I actually answer some of the questions. Okay, if we could move to slide 13, please, John. Application hints and tips. Okay, that's lovely, thank you. Okay, so in your application, we've asked you for a personal statement, and in this personal statement, you've got 500 words to demonstrate how you meet the personal specification for the role. And we're looking for you to provide examples to show your experience. So not just making statements, but to actually show and provide examples. How have you met this criteria in the past? Don't just make claims, you know, actually give examples. In terms of the behaviours, okay, so within the advert, there is a link to the Civil Service Success Profiles document. Within the Civil Service Profiles document, you will be able to look up the grade, and then you will be able to see all of the behaviours for that grade. So you'll be looking in terms of your application for seeing the big picture. So you look for grade 7, seeing the big picture, and it will tell you, there's a paragraph that tells you what we are looking for within that behaviour. And you want to write your behaviour statement showing and demonstrating those elements, because that's how we're going to be assessing it. So have a really good look at that Success Profiles document. Whilst we've asked you for a behaviour statement for seeing the big picture at interview, at application, we're also assessing other behaviours at interview. Again, you'll need to go on, have a look at those different elements, those different behaviours, see what we're looking for, so that you can provide that within your examples. Okay, so when you're answering your behaviour statement, we recommend you use the STAR format, which is situation, task, action, result. Or there's another one called CAR, which is context, action, result. And use those to model your and structure your responses. Okay, in your behaviour statement, it's about you and about what you did. So use language I, don't use we. We want to know about you, what you did, how you did it, and what the outcome was. Okay, not necessarily of your whole team, but we want to know about you. So use I. And also, one thing I would recommend is do a Google research, do some Google searching. There is so much information out there about behaviours, about competency-based. Tell you how to structure your examples, what sort of thing we're looking at. So do a Google research, you know, do get onto Google, do your research. There's a lot of information out there. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please, John? Okay, so reasonable adjustments. Okay, so the OEP are a disability confident employer. We believe in creating equal opportunity for all, and we welcome application for all roles that we advertise. We are members of the Disability Confidence Scheme. We want to encourage everybody to apply for roles, including disabled people. So when completing your application, you will be asked if you wish to apply under the Disability Confidence Scheme. So read the criteria. If you believe you meet the criteria, please do apply under the scheme. What it means is if you score the minimum criteria for at application stage, you will be automatically progressed through to interview stage. So please do, if you do believe that you meet that criteria, apply. Tick that box and apply under the Disability Confidence Scheme. We also offer reasonable adjustments. So we wish to support people at any point in the recruitment process, even if you do not feel you qualify for the DCS scheme. Okay, we consider all visible and non-visible disabilities, neurodiversity, learning differences, chronic mental conditions or mental ill health. So some examples would include dyslexia, epilepsy, autism, chronic fatigue, diabetes or schizophrenia. And we can offer a wide range of adjustments to help people support them in applying for their role, either at application or straight through to interview stage. So you don't have to have a disability to apply for a reasonable adjustment. So again, if you need some additional assistance, please do say so, and we'll contact you and we'll you know, put things in place for you. And then enable you to put your best application forward. Okay. Indicative timelines. So these are indicative timelines. The closing date, well, obviously the closing date's the 1st of September at 11:55. We're hoping to commence the SIF quite quickly from the 2nd of September. And the interviews are going to be mid-September with offers expected shortly afterwards. It largely depends on how many applications we get, because but we're hoping to turn this around quite quickly. So just some indicative dates at the moment. Okay, and finally, we'll go back to the Q&A to see if we had any more questions, if that's okay. All right, let's see what we've got. I think I've answered that one.
The one about seeing the big picture, right? Yes.
Yes, yeah, I think we've answered that one. It's just have a very good look at the success profiles and the information provided on the forms. What level of government representation will we expect to interact with, e.g. cabinet minister, junior minister or senior civil servants? Robbie?
Sending you live, Robbie.
Okay,
just,
yeah.
A few delays. The tech, there you are.
So yeah, you get quite a lot of exposure with this job. We're reasonably frequently meeting with Secretary of State, but that tends to be our chair and our CEO. And then there are director level meetings. But with a job like this, you're likely to have a lead role or prominent role in significant projects. So that you would then be presenting the content of those projects publicly and then to the relevant senior officials. So in all likelihood, probably the greatest interaction for this role is going to be at the senior official level. But with others seeing that depending on the forum. So the most frequent interaction is going to be with senior officials, I suspect. But you will have that sense of ownership over the work that you're doing. I'll skim through a couple of these other questions as well, Jenny, whilst I've got the floor. There's a question about whether there are particular gaps in our disciplinary coverage across the team, and we're not applying that as a criteria here, actually. So we've mentioned, as Tim has said, that we're looking for people to be subject matter experts, but our remit is currently so broad that actually we're not being specific. So we haven't said, you know, we're going to recruit someone with expertise in the circular economy, for example. You know, that's a subject that's of interest, but we wouldn't want people with lots of other areas of subject matter expertise to be discouraged by a specific list. So articulate your expertise in your application, and it will doubtless be relevant to our needs. You know, there are plenty of subjects in this remit. So there's another question about whether the OEP's remit includes reviewing legislation as to how and whether it meets government's targets and obligations. Absolutely, that is very much part of the OEP's role. This is in part of our function called monitoring environmental law, where we will scrutinise proposed legislation in development, and comment and provide advice sometimes where it's asked for and sometimes where it's not. So, for example, we contributed to the debate on amendments to the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill in the last Parliament in relation to maintenance of neutrality. And that was a very significant contribution that led to a change in the way that the law developed. So we do that. The insights function would be in providing a technical analysis of the consequences of the changes in law, and our overall input to these processes would then go alongside our regulatory and our legal functions, because we have a directorate of regulators and a directorate of lawyers as well. So yes, that's very much one of the OEP functions. The other one is whether the 25-year plan that I mentioned is the one that was published by Michael Gove, and whether we're expecting a new plan to be developed. So for technical reasons, yes, it is the same 25-year plan. That's what was put in place. And then it was adopted in the Environment Act in 2021. And then what you see is a series of 5-year amendments. So at the moment, the new government is putting together a rapid review of the environmental plan with a focus on enhanced delivery. So it is still fundamentally the 25-year programme, but each government will want to put its own flavour on it to try and make sure that it is delivered in a way that's consistent with its policy. So yes, there's a rapid review happening right now. There's a question here about experts from a wide range of backgrounds, not just academia, and whether we have staff from other backgrounds too. Absolutely we do. So even within the Insights Directorate, we have those who've come from an academic, postdoctoral research and research background. We've got those like Tim, for example, who've done postgraduate work, but then also moved more or less immediately into government. We have those who've worked in consulting setting, and so are used to the kind of project focus and quick fire delivery of work. So it is a diverse team in terms of backgrounds, and we would value all of those in how we do the work within Insights Directorate. Will there be any line management involved? Possibly, but it's not going to be massive. So when I came into the civil services grade 7, I was leading a team of about 30 or 40 people. At grade 7, that's not going to happen here because we're a small organisation, so there aren't 30 or 40 people to be managed. So it's more likely that your management skills would be developed through project management and delivery rather than line management, although there may be a handful of posts at HEO and SEO level. Conferences. I'm just rattling through these because it's the most time efficient way of doing it, I think. So the next one is there opportunities for attending external conferences and events? Absolutely there is, and visibility for the OEP is important. We need to do more of it. So attendance and presentation at relevant environmental science and environmental management conferences will be encouraged, and there is a resource available within this directorate to do that. Is an environmental degree essential? Yeah. Or desirable, provided that previous or current roles demonstrate extensive exposure. Yes, so there is a line in the job description that says or equivalent experience. So we look at these applications properly, and if you've got a great track record of working in a relevant area and fulfilling the other criteria, then we're not going to look in a blinkered way at the academic background. This is about getting people with the right sets of skills in a relevant set of experiences that will help our team. So if you've got that catalogue of experience in that career, then please do apply, and don't. These things are only really construed as guidance to candidates, and we want to get the best people in for the team that we can. And so don't be discouraged by any detail that's in there. Put your best foot forward. Next question is, this is a good question, would you expect the role working on the Northern Ireland assessments to be based in Northern Ireland? So just a little word on Northern Ireland and how we integrate the two things. So we have a similar set of functions in Northern Ireland as we do in England. Most of our staff are based in England, although in Insights we have several members of the team who are based in Northern Ireland. What we don't do is say, you're in Northern Ireland, you work on Northern Ireland stuff, you're in England, you work on England stuff. There is a lot of crossover, and so that the best people do the job that needs to be done irrespective of location. So the person working on the Northern Ireland role need not be based in Northern Ireland. And equally, the role working on the evidence programme could be based in Northern Ireland or England. So we are location agnostic. Well, I'll let Tim get a word in edgeways, shall I? Tim, why don't you? So there's a question here, Tim, about examples of current projects happening within Insights. Maybe you could answer that one.
Yeah, sure. So, well, we have a whole range of projects based on the priorities that kind of set out in our corporate plan. But just to give you a few examples, so one of the areas we're looking at is kind of improving nature at sea. So what we're doing there is, end of last year, we launched Call for Evidence, which looked at all of the kind of pressures and challenges in achieving good environmental status in our seas. And now, building on that, we've got kind of more detailed projects looking at bycatch and marine protected areas. And really what they're doing is identifying what are the challenges in government achieving its objectives and legal targets, and how do we kind of meet that. So that's one area. Another area that's probably worth looking at is nature-friendly farming, where we're looking at kind of environmental land management schemes and regulations and how that all fits together. And we have a kind of broad range. So some of our projects are very specific, like those ones I mentioned, but we will also undertake work to really figure out what is a key topic, a key kind of cross-cutting theme. One of these, a good example, is green finance. So this is something that runs across a lot of the areas within the Environment Improvement Plan. It's a really important area. So we commissioned a review to really help us understand that area and what our role would be, and we're now building on that with further work. So it's a really broad range of things, but there is work that kind of supports our EIP work. There's work that supports that issues-based approach I mentioned earlier. So that could be marine, it could be water, it could be improving nature, could be chemicals. So we've got a number of priority topics, and those may drill down into those areas. So it's a kind of broad remit of things, but that hopefully gives you a bit of a taster of the topics.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. And we have one final question about the funding model of the OEP. Can anybody take that one?
Yeah,
can the government cut its budget, or its funding? Is it funding ring-fenced, sorry, in any way?
Yeah, I'll do that one. And of course, government can change budgets. That's exactly what they do. At the moment, given the OEP is a new organisation, we're still actually in a growth period. That's sort of more or less coming to an end, or rather we're plateauing. We'll be plateauing at our current headcount, so we don't expect that to grow an awful lot beyond the new post that we're recruiting now. So far, our experience has been that our budget's been increased, And within this team, our evidence budget is also increased, and so far we've been able to maintain that. We did initially have a settlement for 3 years. We're now moving into a period where public finances are very much a hot topic, and there's a lot of discussion about how to make the books balance. So anything could happen, but at the moment we don't have major concerns about reduction in budget in the way that other parts of government might. So in terms of the effect on this job, I wouldn't consider that to be a major consideration at this point.
Thank you, Robbie. Okay, that's fabulous. I apologise we have overrun, but we've had some very good questions there and lots of information to give out. So thank you for bearing with us. Just a reminder, the closing date for application deadline, is Sunday, the 1st of September at 23:55. If you have any questions, please do email recruitment@theoep.org.uk. We'll pick questions up and we'll get back to you as soon as we can, which is generally within a day or two. So yeah, if you've got any questions, please put them forward and we'll get back to you. But for now, I'll say goodbye. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to meet us and come and talk to us. And a copy of this webinar, if you want to re-listen to it, will be put on the website shortly. Thank you very much, everybody. Good afternoon.
Goodbye.